first song I wrote, I was probably 10 with my sister. And it's gonna sound really funny, but we were really angry. We lived in New York at the time that the World Trade Centers were hit, and like it was a whole big emotional thing for the entire state. And my sister and I were really angry. We didn't know what else to do, so we started like singing songs, like angry songs about like killing Osama bin Laden, and like it sounds funny, right? But we were really angry and we were kids and we didn't know what to do. And that's not a lie. This is not, you can pull my sister in here. I don't know if she'd been writing before. She was at that time 7. She was 7, I was 9. She was the songwriting force behind it. Like for me, I just sit in front of a computer sometimes and do things that sound cool. And sometimes you just scrap it. Probably 80% of the time you just throw it out. It's just like garbage. But if you can get 20% of your stuff to sound okay, I mean, that's pretty good. It's probably, for me, it's like 2 in 100 maybe, where you're just, how did I get that? You know, how did I get a hold of that great sound or that great hook or whatever? And again, that might be in the 80% that you just throw away, but it's a good feeling to know that like, hey man, that could have been radio ready. You know, if I was able to fill out the rest of that song, that would have been the best part of it. I just didn't get the rest of the song.
I think the first song I ever wrote, I was maybe 8 or 9. And I was watching the show American Juniors, which if you don't know what that is, it was like American Idol but with children. And I really desperately wanted to be on American Juniors, and my dad was like, not for it. But I used to watch them, and there was an episode where they all had to like write a song. And I was like, oh, I could do that. And so I remember going up and writing this song about like some TV show I had watched recently, and like it was about like this boy who had been in love with this girl, and she like left him. And so I wrote this whole song that was probably the best thing I've ever written at 10 years old, just about unrequited love. I find that most often what happens is that I either hear someone use a phrase, or I just kind of like a phrase will pop into my mind that I really like, just like a couple of words here and there, and so from there I'll just write it down, kind of think about it. I just start to try to like make rhymes and put words together and think of kind of topics I want to write about and start to put simple phrases together. And so once I do that, like I'll sit down and kind of write them out, and I usually have like a journal that I have open, and it's, you know, like blank paper, and I'll just start writing all the phrases that come to mind and see kind of what matches up into stanzas and what'll rhyme and what doesn't and what makes sense until it all starts to form actual lyrics. Sometimes I'll write more like poetry and try to put music to it, but more often than not, it's like I come up with this idea of something I want to write about, something that I'm feeling, and I'll just sort of see what comes out. It's a lot of like stream of consciousness for me, and then taking the jumble and putting it into something coherent.
The first song I wrote with my band, we wrote it about a Yu-Gi-Oh card my friend had. It was this card called Jerry Beansman, and we were like, dude, that's so funny. What if there was like what's the story of Jerry Beansman? And so that was, yeah, and like seriously, at one point we had and played like 3 or 4 songs related to Jerry Beansman, because we were like, dude, this is such like a gold mine of inspiration, and we like wrote all these songs about it. It was funny. When I do with a band, it usually is just that we'll just like jam, and then if we like find something we like doing that, then we'll like try to develop that further. And it's like kind of the same thing too when I'm like by myself. I'll just like go and like play guitar, and like if I am just like messing around and like find something that I like and how it sounds or whatever, I'll try to just like develop it further from that. Yeah, I think the difficult thing is that like I listen to so much different stuff, and I want it to like I want the stuff I write to sound like everything, and so it's like hard because I'm like, oh man, I want this to sound like Miles Davis, but also like Black Sabbath, and also like all these other things, and I'm like, there's no way to like put them all together.
Yeah, writing's always been like a weird thing for me. Okay, that's not true. I've written a couple songs, but it was just, to kind of show students that I had how to take something that was like a group of chords or like a really simple rhythm and add on to it and make it more interesting. Yeah, I think it's because a lot of the time with the drums, you don't get given a sheet of music that tells you what to play. Like in orchestra I did, But like when I play in church or when I've played with people or things like that, you know, even if there's songs that have been written, there's no website like Ultimate Guitar for Drums. You can't like go online and find drum tabs or anything like that very easily. So you have to just make it up as you go. And so like when I think of writing, a lot of it for me is how like I can react to something in an instant, and like not so much jotting that down and saying like, okay, this is how I'm going to do this. It's more like I'm trying to remember the feeling I had when I did it, and then just recreate that feeling and not actually recreate what I actually played. And it kind of works for drums because you don't have to like stay in key or anything like that, right? With like guitar or bass or piano or vocals, if you go out of key, everyone's really going to probably notice that. But with the drums, you can be like, okay, I can do something completely different here, like completely different. And people that have never heard the song will not notice, and if I do it right, it'll convey the same like emotions and feelings that it did the first time, even though maybe instead of playing the cymbals, I'm playing the toms, or I'm doing like a snare drum thing, so it can kind of like go across like that. It's all about like how people respond to each other when they're playing, right? And how like they play off the audience, and like the feelings that they have at that point in time, right? So yeah, that's kind of how like writing seems to me.
If you're honest with yourself at the end of the process, you will never release anything that you wrote trying to be somebody else. You know, if you're honest, like, will this resonate? Because if it doesn't resonate with you, there's probably going to be 1 or 2 out of 7 billion people that it's going to resonate with. It's going to come off as a copy and stiff.
I guess I think it's interesting to like the aspect of it that like you get to see what you can do. Like I think that's really interesting that you can like see your own potential when you write something. I think that's really cool.
I think music is just the most like natural form of communication to me. I think talking is hard. I think even just writing is hard, but music itself is like a way that you can communicate that almost anyone can understand.
Well, I think it can also like inspire us to like go on to bigger things, you know? It can like convey the emotions of like motivation, or it can help you get over things when you're like upset or not feeling well. So I think that's really cool.